It's 1 o'clock. So good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Marlene Saucier, and I'm Senior Director of Talent Networks and Partner Success here at TTA. As we evaluate ideas for webinars and training content and things that we share with you, our goal is always to make sure that the content is relevant and timely, as your time is so valuable, especially now. So to start us off, Mahatma Gandhi once said, "Our ability to reach unity in diversity will be the beauty and test of our civilization." 2020 has certainly tested our civilization in many ways, and in order to see the beauty in all of this, we need to collectively look deeper into ourselves as corporate citizens, but most importantly, people, to learn how we can do better and be better. So we're excited to bring you an inspiring diversity and inclusion training session today, developed and led by one of our best, Keisha Dixon, who has created award-winning learning programs. She's one of my favorite people. Keisha's been working with TTA as an award-winning learning consultant with over 2 decades of experience designing and facilitating behavior-based sales, coaching, and leadership solutions. Keisha's approach is refreshingly unique. She recognizes that identifying the specific rhythms in an organization's culture is the key to creating visible, empowering leadership and cultural change. She brings an innate ability to align an organization's vision and its people to meet their bottom line objectives. Never one to shy away from difficult conversations about expectations and performance, Keisha prioritizes keeping equity and inclusion top of mind. Clients have found her approach to building a high-performance and inclusive culture to be tangible, transparent, energizing, and honest with the perfect sense of humor, and you will see that today. Some of the clients Keisha's work has impacted includes Estee Lauder, Toll Brothers Luxury Homes, the Girl Scouts of Kentucky's Wilderness Road, Girl Scouts of America, the Coca-Cola Credit Union, Broadway Bank, and America Online, just to name a few. So before we get started, sorry, my accent just came out. I just wanted to share a couple of things about our session today. We will be recording the session and sending it out at the end of the webinar, along with some resources that we've curated just for you. And we'll also ask for you to collaborate with us on this during the session. Please do feel free to use the Q&A feature in Zoom to ask questions. If you see a question in the Q&A that interests you, you can actually click the thumbs up, and the question will actually move up to the top of the list. All questions asked during the webinar will be answered either during the webinar or as a follow-up if we don't get to you. So thanks again for joining us, and Keisha, take it away.
Hi, everybody. What a wonderful, wonderful Thursday morning / afternoon, depending on where you are, it is. My name is Keisha Dixon, and I am, I guess, your friendly cruise director for the next few hours. Hi. So, Marlene, thank you so much for such a wonderful and generous introduction. Marlene and I have worked together for about 5 years, and I can honestly count her as a friend. We have developed quite the relationship. I would love the opportunity to develop a relationship with you as well. And so I guess we should start a little bit about who I am, what I do, and what this whole thing is all about. So a little bit about my background. I have had the distinct pleasure of being raised by a military family. And I think this is important for you to know, to understand my mindset, because the name of this training is like Got Bias, how to create a mindset of inclusion, right? So my parents are from New Orleans, Louisiana. My dad's from the wrong side of the tracks, and my mom was the goody-goody deacon's daughter in church. And my parents made the decision to join the military as a family. And my sister and I really grew up all over the world. I come from a very strong Black family. So in case you didn't notice, I am Black, just want to say. All right. But I've moved around a lot in white spaces and Asian spaces growing up. So I've had the privilege of seeing culture from many different facets. I've always had roots back home in New Orleans. Because I'm a military brat, my first real memories of school were at Yokota Air Force Base in Japan. And you weren't black or white, you were American or you were Japanese there. So that was a really interesting way of viewing the world. And Americans really stuck together. My best friend is from the Philippines, and many of my friends growing up were of Asian mixed heritage because of being in a military family, and kind of set the tone. I went to 13 schools before I graduated high school. So change is something I'm kind of familiar with. So I just wanted to give you the background so that you know that, all right, Tim, thank you for your service. And you're right. I have to say this, Tim. Military brats don't seem to have the same kind of biases that are in civilian life because we move a lot. We have to get along. Oh, by the way, if your children act up, your parents also can be disciplined for your children's actions. So that has a lot to do with it as well. Today's session is 3 hours long. So on the Eastern time zone, that is from 1 to 4. I'm in Central time zone in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. We are going to really, I just want to set the tone. Talking about race is so hard, you guys. Talking about diversity and inclusion is a challenge. However, we have to have an approach that makes it safe for everyone. So I just want to set the tone right up front. This is not a debate. Debate requires a winner and a loser. Fair? I'm asking, like, I hope you guys are with me on that. It's not a discussion. A discussion has specific points leading to a specific action plan, right? You're coming to make a decision. What I would like to create for you guys is the opportunity for a dialogue that will help change the way we think so it can change what we do. This is my 3rd time doing this class. It's kind of different every time because the vibe of the people is different. And who knows what I was thinking when I got up this morning. But I would like to share this before we get started. The world is changing right now. It's changing quickly, and it's somewhat painful and very confusing for a lot of people. And when we talk about bias, we tend to hear it spoken about with a lot of blame. And I want to make sure that you know that's not my position when it comes to bias. The way I look at it is we can't control a thought, and that thought becomes words, and those words become actions, and those actions become habits, and those habits define character, and that character becomes your legacy. So although we can't always control the thoughts, we can control everything else after that. And I'd like to have just a wonderfully frank dialogue about what that means in 2020 in the state of our world today. Jerry, wow, Navy. See, you understand where I'm coming from. 10 years, you move almost 10 times. It changes the way you see the world, doesn't it? Fantastic. So our class today, I just want to let you know, I wish I could come and say, let's solve racism and discrimination in 3 hours. It's not going to happen. I'm just going to be real with you. What I can say is that inclusion is a mindset, and we have to plant the right thoughts to build the right actions. I'm sorry, Holly Lynch. That is the best saying I've ever heard. That is so good. You're not responsible for the bird poop. All right. So just with that said, there's no quick fix, but I would love to provide some simple tools to make your future dialogues go a little easier and a little better. There's a couple things we're doing today. We're going to have 2 major activities, one at the beginning, one at the end of the training. We'll take 2 breaks, almost exactly on the hour, give or take. You know, I'm a facilitator, so ish, in about an hour-ish at each stopping point. And then throughout, we'll have some Q&As, but there's a specifically designed section of the training that will also create the opportunity for Q&A. What I'd love to do now is actually, believe it or not, start with an activity. You guys ready to start with something like right from the gate? So, does everybody have pen and paper? Or a digital device with a digital pen, whatever. Perfect. So we're going to take a piece of paper. And we're going to number on the left-hand side 1 through 10 and make just like a makeshift grid. Does this flip the right way, Marlene, when you look at it? Oh, that's so crazy. Super cool. All right. So if you do it horizontal, if you do it landscape, it'll make it easier. I know. Let me get over here. It'll make it a little easier. So go ahead and just make your chart. All right. So what I'd like you to do is think about your circle. The 10 people in your life who have the greatest influence or the greatest level of persuasion in your life. These are your trusted 10. And go ahead and write them down. They don't have to be in a particular order. Just write them down as they come to mind. Okay. So maybe another couple seconds. So if we've got our 10, we're going to start kind of talking a little bit about who they are. So the first question is, what's their marital status? So go ahead and write out their little marital status. I believe I can remember them all: married, single, divorced, widowed, complicated, however you want it to be. Separated, complicated. Okay, once we've got that, what's their race? Give you a moment for that. So we've got marital status, we've got race. What's their gender? Also, I would say even, how do they identify? What's the gender they identify with? Because the world is changing. Let me know, am I going too fast, too slow? Can I have a little feedback just so I know whether I have to pick up the pace or slow it down? Oh, thank you. Just right, a little fast. I'll slow down just a little. Okay. So we did, which are the 3 we've done so far? Marital status, race, gender. What about sexual orientation? And you may not know. It's okay to say you don't know if you don't know or you never thought about it. Question mark is actually acceptable. Because I don't know that I ask all my friends that. Marlene, do you ask all your friends? All right. So the next one is age. If you don't know the exact numbers, pick a range. If you ask my kids, my range is old. So, and they're adults, so I don't know. They'll get here quick enough. So if we're good, we'll move on to the next one. What about ability? And I put physical ability, but what I'm really speaking of is, are they fully able-bodied? Are they using assisted devices? And you know, if it applies in your life, it could even be mental ability or emotional ability. It could be any kind of ability or disability. Is there something that makes them differently abled? Just got a couple more, a few more. What about their socioeconomic class? Yes, Stephen, perfect. Lower class, middle class, upper class, however you choose to define that. I think I would find myself in like middle class. I don't know. Military class. I would say, are they impoverished? Are they in poverty level? Home ownership, examples like that. Just, are they in the same class as you, truthfully? You're welcome. What's their first language, or what language do they speak at home? Is it English? I have a very good friend whose language spoken at home was ASL. He was born to 2 deaf parents. And he is not hearing impaired. Which makes it fun when I talk to him, because sometimes he signs to me and I'm like, okay, I got it. What does that mean? So we've got language, and the last one is ethnicity. So we already asked about race. So who wants to help out? What's the difference between race and ethnicity? No such thing as a wrong answer. It could be, Natalie, it could be country of origin. Culture versus bio. Ooh, Stephen, I'm so stealing that. Cultural identification. Absolutely. It's things in your culture that identify you as this very specific group of people. And ethnicity, let's see. For those of you, let's all make sure that in our chat that the to box says all panelists and attendees, so that everybody can see the wonderful things you're saying. Holly, thank you for calling that out. Okay, did we all make that change? I know, Holly's a rock star. Hillary, correct. We're gonna get to that. Hillary says, well, race is a social construct. So correct. So ethnicity, just so you know, like ethnically, I'm probably more Creole than I think I'm Creole and African-American. I'm from New Orleans, and New Orleans has a very distinct culture. I'm a Creole girl. Holly is the best. Holly gets a gift card. I think I'm jealous, but I'm gonna move on. So we've got this list, and I would love to give us maybe 60 seconds just to take a look at our list and think about what it means to you. What are you noticing about your circle? I'm gonna start asking. Holly says, I tend to have family. My family is my circle and very small amount of outsiders. Oh, it sounds like a great, strong, tight-knit family. Not a lot of diversity. Some say that people are a lot alike. I hear that a lot like me. A lot of similarities. So when you see that, let me ask, what emotions does that evoke, create? How about that? What emotions does that create? Oh, that's very specific, Stephen. Diverse with age, marital status, gender, not so much around race and ethnicity. Lauren, military background. It does it for you, doesn't it? Natalie, guilt. Talk to me about that, some guilt. Okay, so these are some uncomfortable words. Guilt, discomfort with discomfort, somewhat embarrassed. Let me ask, is it bad to have people in your tightest circle who are just like you? Is that all bad? I will tell you guys, I'm a military brat. Almost all of my closest circles until I was in my late 30s were all from military families because it's what I know. Oh, Leanne, that's brilliant. It's not bad necessarily, but it's limiting. Yes, it can limit. Don't feel guilt. Feel aware. Are you guys okay with that? Yeah, you're so right, Jan. It's not bad. It could just be limiting. You dig it. Your people who you trust, you don't trust them because of their skin color or their age. I hope you guys know that. It's because you have a solidarity with them. A lot of them are probably your family or extended family. There are lots of reasons why our circle is how it is. Space, place, and experience. Yes. When you're in your friend circle, you feel trust because they know what you know and they come from where you come from. I can have a different kind of conversation with my Black friends who grew up in an all-Black neighborhood than I can have with my Black friends who grew up in military families. They're completely different conversations because we talk about completely different experiences when we're together. But Tracy, I want to thank you for that. You are so correct. It is so much easier to open our minds when we open our friend circles. Absolutely. So I will say this. When you look at your list, just understand what it is. Understand that it's a part of what makes you feel confident about being you. But it can insulate you from a lot of experiences in the rest of the world that may be a little harder for you to see and relate to. I am not about giving anybody a pass, but I also don't want to throw blame. We are who we are because of our own experiences and the people who feed into those experiences. So let me ask, is this an activity any of you would like to just do as an icebreaker with your team or do something with this when you take it back in your spaces? I think it's a wonderful conversation starter, right? Well, guess what? Marlene's team will be sending out an actual worksheet that is all filled out and a facilitator guide with not just the order in which to ask. Jan, yes, it's amazing, isn't it? But also some questions for a deeper conversation. Fair? So that is on its way tomorrow, Marlene? Marlene nods yes. Tomorrow. Fantastic. So are we all loosened up now? I'm loosened up. If you hear funny little key sounds, that's my dog's tags and she's running back and forth and back and forth. Yes, and you know what? And you're right, because Robin, there's nothing a trainer does that is exclusively theirs. You guys do know this, right? Part of facilitating is learning from other people and sharing it, because it's more important to popularize the idea and the movement than it is to take credit for anything. I didn't make this. I had marketing even help me with the worksheet. Just so you know, I made the worksheet, but I had them make it pretty. So, and we are here to share. So let's talk a little bit about bias. What is bias? Anybody? You guys are talkative too. I love that. Oh, Jerry, it's my pleasure. It's an assumption. Excellent, Cassandra. I don't know if it's Cassandra or Cassandra. It's a preconceived idea about a person or a group. Yes. It's a way of thinking. It can be prejudice, Tyler. You're correct. An automatic response without thinking, Leanne, big ups. Big ups. You guys are right on point. It's an automatic interpretation or assignment of meaning to anything. You guys hear me on this. It's anything. Your brain receives, you guys will not believe me, but this is so crazy, about 11 million pieces of data in a second. 1 second, 11 million things just like went to my brain. And I think I have a good brain. I'm just going to let you know I'm really proud of my brain, but it can only process about 40 pieces of information in any given second, you guys. Isn't that crazy? So where does it pull that information from? And I can kind of feel like where Katrina's going and Miranda's going. It's your experiences, not just your circle, but the things you've done, the places you've been, what you've read, what you've seen, what you've heard, what you've learned. Your brain tries to assign meaning based on whatever you have assigned importance to. And just so you know, and I want you to know this, I'd like you guys to write this down. It is done without you being aware. Are you guys with me? You have no awareness of it at all. You cannot control it. Bias is outside of your control. Your brain's just making quick assumptions and connections. You know that whole fight or flight thing, right? And even more importantly, it comes without intention. Bias has no intention whatsoever. It's just a feeling that comes from a thought that happens in the recesses of your mind based on experiences you've had or things you've seen or learned. So when I look at this picture, it triggers me. What is this a picture of? I would eat macaroni salad, Cassandra, but no, indeed it is not. It is cottage freaking cheese. And guess what? I am highly biased against, thank you, no. I am biased against cottage cheese. I look at it and everything inside of me goes, bleh, bleh. That is my response to cottage cheese. Now, what the heck does cottage cheese have to do with bias? I hear you saying it's delicious, whatever. My brain has told me I am not gonna like this. I am 49 years old and have never tried cottage cheese. I love your question, Holly. Very confrontational. I love it. I have never tried it, but I don't like it. Marielle, because I've got a prejudice towards it. It doesn't look like anything I'm gonna eat. It's not anything I've ever eaten. You guys see how bias works? It just happens. But you guys are bringing it. He says if he would try it, he would like it less. I am with your husband. So I want you guys to see how this thing builds. I look at cottage cheese. It looks wet. It does not look inviting. I don't like it. That's what my brain tells me. So out of my mouth now, I say, I don't like cottage cheese. But I've never tried it. So that makes me ignorant. I have a judgment based on ignorance, based on a lack of knowledge and information. What is that called? What is that judgment called? So my bias is an idea that I could not control. My body just said, bleh. Now, it's a preconceived notion. You guys got it. It is prejudice. I say I don't like it. I've never tried it, but I am choosing to be happy with the ignorance. I don't know what it tastes like. I'm not going to know, you guys, just frankly, between me and all 61 of you. Not going to happen. Because something's telling me I'm not going to like it. That is prejudice. Are you guys seeing where I'm going with this? My prejudice, once it is recognized, I know I haven't tried it, but I'm telling you I don't like it, and I'm going to dig my heels in and say, not only have I never tried it, but I can promise you I won't try it. What does that bring us to? So we're going to graduate, we're stuck, graduate from bias to prejudice to bigotry. Nothing you can tell me is going to make me try it. It's more resistance than hate, Holly. Teresa, you're right on it. I am comfortable with my prejudice. It has become a part of my value system. I don't know that I actively hate cottage cheese, but I have justified why I don't like it and why I'm not willing to try it. You guys are freaking brilliant. I'm loving this. I have justified it. Right? So my bias is an uncontrollable thought. I'm now aware of my uncontrollable thought, and I say, I agree with my uncontrollable thought. Now I'm in prejudice. Then I'm going to dig my heels in and just refuse to do anything to change my thought. Now understand, this is cottage cheese. Nobody cares if I like cottage cheese except for maybe my mom when I was young. So now I am very bigoted against cottage cheese. What if I were in a position of power? Ooh, I love dictionaries. Obstinate or intolerant devotion to one's own opinions and prejudices. Do you guys get a feeling that I am obstinate and intolerant regarding cottage cheese? In case you didn't notice, yes. I'm almost 50, never tried it. Complete wall, exactly, exactly. Here's the thing. If I'm in a position where I can open or close doors, I want you guys to hear me on this. Open or close doors to access to all the food in the dairy case, then I can actually practice discrimination. I'm going to let my prejudice and my bigotry help me make decisions on who gets access and who does not. And if I owned a grocery store, I could discriminate against cottage cheese and just say, we don't sell that here. You guys still tracking with me on this analogy? Now, can we just be real? Cottage cheese does not have feelings. It does not have family. It doesn't have experiences. It is a food. When we assign this to people, it creates an imbalance of power if we are in positions of power, whether it's in our own home or our workplace, in our government, our educational system, etc. And opening and closing doors, yeah, discrimination. I can decide who comes, who doesn't. The molecular structure of it probably does agree, but again, Tim, I don't care because it's cottage cheese. But if it were people, I do care. I just want to make sure we understand that we're not talking about an inanimate object. We're talking about human beings. And so when we have a thought about people and we limit how we think about them because of an unknown, that's prejudice. We just have some kind of feeling, some kind of way, maybe because of a stereotype, maybe because we were taught it, we don't know. And when we dig into it and we're obstinate about it, we become bigots. And if we're in a position of power to allow access, we could use our bigotry to discriminate. And here's the ugly truth. First of all, let me just do this. Okay, I just need to get the cottage cheese off the screen. That's a very good point. What if it's actually potato salad? I will miss out if it looks like cottage cheese. The truth is, sorry, I had to change it to something I like. The truth of it is that You don't just wake up one day and you're a racist. You don't just wake up one day and have racist thoughts. You don't. You have biased thoughts. You guys with me on this? And then how you embrace or reject that bias, which, by the way, all biases aren't bad. I am highly, highly biased towards chocolate. Not a bad thing. Well, it could be a bad thing in excess, but that's not the point. All right, so here's where it gets kind of painful and ugly. Young people learn from what's around them. They learn from what is explicitly said and implicitly understood. They learn by who's allowed in the door and who is not allowed in the door. How we talk about people around the dinner table or in the boardroom. How we review a resume and determine someone's worth by words on paper, like their name. All of these things are built on bias. The truth is, without bias, there's no racism. But there's so many steps between bias and racism. And the only thing we can't control is the first thought in our head. Everything else we have power over. Everything else we have faculty over. And when we get to racism, that's really deep, you guys, because that is a sense of someone's worth or lack thereof based on things they have no control over. The color of their skin. I would even say, to borrow, and I think it was Holly's word earlier, hate. We tend to form a hate to justify our own sense of purpose or belonging or privilege, one might say. Racism is a taught construct. It starts with bias, and then everything we can do can play into it or against it. I know you guys have heard very much so, it's not okay not to be a racist. You have to be an anti-racist. If you really don't believe in racism, you have to be an anti-racist. But I just want to ask you, like, is racism just people? If we just fix how everybody thinks, will that cure racism? What do you guys think? Thank you, Holly. It's the systems. We built all the rules based on superior and inferior people. I'm going to let you know right up front that no one, and I mean no one, can get away from biases. I would like to share an epic fail with you guys, if you are willing to allow me to share that. Yes, Erica, it's a conscious deciding. So I told you about my background. I never heard the N-word until I was about, I would say 7 or 8. We moved to Sumter, South Carolina, Shaw Air Force Base. And I went to school off base, like in the community, in a civilian school. And like, I didn't know a word could hurt so bad, to be perfectly honest. But I've dealt with racial tension most of my life from 7 on. I would like to say, on a good day, on an average day, I'm a good person and I'm tolerant and I'm empathetic and I take the time to listen to people and talk to them. But there was this one day, I worked for an internet company, America Online, and I was a new hire trainer. And I had, you know, when you teach new hire, we have a month with the same group of students and we tell them, you can't miss more than so many days and tardies are unacceptable. For those of you who are trainers, you guys totally get what I'm saying, right? Like, you've got rules to graduate someone to the floor. Tim, we're gonna have to talk. That's super crazy. I work for member services. So I'm teaching this class and there's this particular woman who in the first 2 weeks missed 3 days. Not acceptable, and we can't spend another dime on her employment. So she also had been tardy a few times, so I pull her into the office after class and sit down with her and explain to her that I'll be separating her from the company based on our attendance policy. And she starts screaming and yelling and insulting, And I end up having to call security to walk her out instead of just me walking her out. So security comes to get her and walking out behind them, and she's screaming at the top of her lungs, and the whole floor can hear her. You know what, you Black B, you're just mad because I have a fine Black man and you don't, and she goes into this whole tirade about how I hate her because she's a white woman who is with a Black man. Y'all, I didn't even know she had a Black man. Heck, she was never in class for me to even know who she was as a person. But she's screaming it at the top of her lungs. And I am trying to hold my cool. I don't know if I was mad or wanted to cry. I can't even tell you anymore what the feelings were. But I walked back to my office, and this is my I'm so done thing. I just put my head in my hands. And in my office, our office was like a letter C, and I had a pod mate who sat right behind me. And I'm not even realizing he's there, and I'm like, oh my God, I just can't stand, I hate white women. And Wayne says to me, my wife is a white woman. I was mortified. Like, you guys don't even know. Can I ask you something? Do you really feel with my upbringing that I hate white women? Honestly. No. I hated the situation. I hated the embarrassment of the moment. I hated that she took it there. Right, Teresa. But do I hate white women? No. I was acting out, Jan. I got to work on that sometimes. I'm going to be real honest. But here is this white gentleman who's sitting behind me, who's been nothing but a friend to me. Ultimately, we become lifelong friends, and I'm the godmother to his 16-year-old daughter now. But the words that came out of my mouth were involuntary. They were based on a situation. Brad, I see your hand up. What question do you have? I'm seeing hands up. Oh, okay. It's okay. I just want to make sure everybody's getting. Holly, did you have a question or a comment?
You can speak if you'd like to.
Oh, you can. Do you have the way to unmute?
Yeah.
Okay.
You see.
All right. So
we have a couple people in my company that are under my name, Holly Lynch, so it could be someone other than me. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. Got it. All right. So does anybody else have a question? I do see another hand up. Okay. Then can we lower all hands? I think we're good. Okay, great. So I'm obviously, can you guys imagine my embarrassment in that moment? Like, what do I say? How do I prove that I'm not a racist in this moment? And the truth is, I couldn't get my pride up. And I had to say, you know what? You're right. That was crappy of me. I don't know where it came from. That's the only thing I can do is cop to it and say, I'm really sorry. And guess what? My dear friend Wayne, of 20 years now, said to me, he said, oh, I understand. She ticked you off. I understand. But if we're friends and you can call me out when I say insensitive things, then I can call you out. And it was exactly what you said, Natalie. We owned it. And then he was like, she was such a jerk. I'm so glad you got rid of her. And we moved on. But that haunts me to this day because I never thought anything like that would come out of my mouth. Oh, wow. I'm reading Jan's comment. I know, right? Yeah, I'm white too. And I'll tell you guys, and I didn't tell this in my previous classes, but my little goddaughter calls me Auntie Keisha. And when she was about 3, she told her dad that he lied to her because I couldn't be his aunt. And so her parents are like calling me on the phone saying, okay, so we were so scared we were going to have the race talk with a 3-year-old. And so we decided, like, well, why do you think that, is what they asked her. And her response was like the best response I've heard in my whole life. Well, Daddy, you only have one sister and Mommy doesn't have any sisters, so Keisha can't be my aunt. And I said, okay, so where'd you go from there? And he said, so we asked, well, who is she? And that sweet, precious child said, my cousin, duh. We teach hate. We teach intolerance. Yes, yes. Oh, you guys, thank you guys all for sharing. Erica, thank you for that. But I just want to make sure you know, I don't put myself on a pedestal above anybody. Because this is real life. This is how it really, really works. So let's move on from this, because we all got it. Like, so bias is a seed. And then as you keep feeding that seed, it can grow into something positive or something negative. And of course, racism is the ultimate negative. Ooh, Robin. Yes. Well, I am a big Brene Brown fan. I want to say this to what Teresa said. And you are so right. Vulnerability is a superpower. It gives us courage. It allows us to take risk. If we have nothing to lose, there is no courage. There is no risk. So for those of you who are practitioners, just remember vulnerability is the key to connection. And Robin, I am so sorry. I know exactly what that feels like being called a name that's not your own. It's heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. Okay, we're gonna change the topic and we're gonna quiz you guys. We're gonna play a game. So the first thing I wanna do is talk about what is diversity. So what do you guys think diversity is? Look at all these beautiful people. Oh my gosh. What is diversity? It's differences. It's differences. Yes. You guys, look at this. I like it. And with an exclamation point, Marlene. It's differences. But it's more than just differences. It's embracing differences. Understanding there is value in differences. That's diversity. And those differences may not all be skin deep. Tim, you're right on time with that. It means understanding that each person is a unique individual and recognizing what makes them unique. That is diversity. Diversity is not checking a box and saying, I've got a Black, I've got an Asian, I've got a gay. Like, that's not diversity. Diversity is bring your authentic self because you have value. And I'm not going to stand at the door and pick and choose whose differences are better than someone else's. So if I gave you a test, oh, thank you. You know what? You too can have this collage, Robin, with a simple Adobe subscription. Oh man, but I loved it when I saw it. I loved it. All right, so we're gonna do a little test real quick, okay? So I'm gonna show you a picture and you're gonna tell me, Tim, you're right. Differences build a strong team because it brings in different experiences. Absolutely. So I'm gonna ask, is there diversity in this picture? Tim's on fire today. Yes. So talk to me about it. Where's the diversity? What is it? Come on, guys, let's get real with the words. What's the diversity here? Race, height, but it could be ethnicity, sexuality, could be physical diversity, hair. Denim shirts are diverse. I love it. Their educational backgrounds. Let me ask you, by looking at this picture, can we tell who's hearing impaired? Nope. Can we tell who's an immigrant by looking at this picture? Nope. Can we tell who served as a veteran and possibly lost a limb by looking at this picture? Who was raised in an orphanage or a foster home? Nope. We have to look beyond the surface. Fair? We just have to. Because we don't know until we do what with these two individuals? Yes. Connect, talk to them, engage, get to know them. That is embracing differences. We have to counter a stereotype which is built on a bias. We have to counter the taught stereotype and look deeper. Because we have to get to know them. They're two very different individuals who may be very similar in a lot of ways, but we don't know. So we'll do one more. Is there diversity in this picture? Robin, can I steal that icebreaker? Ooh, I like yes, but it's harder to find. Hair color? No. Let me ask, which one of them is a felon? Right. We can't see gender expression. We can't see their disabilities. We can't tell who's hearing impaired. We can't tell who suffers from a bipolar disorder. We can't tell who speaks another language as their first language. We can't tell. Diversity is everywhere. So even for people who seem the same, it doesn't mean we think the same. It doesn't mean we have the same experiences. They both appear to be sitting down. Which one is in a wheelchair? Can we tell? So even there's diversity if you share the same racial classification. Don't get tripped up by race is my point. Is that fair? And I'm not saying race doesn't matter. I'm saying there's diversity all around us. And I'm a Black woman, but I also care about my LGBTQ brothers and sisters. You guys with me on that? I also care about my physically differently abled brothers and sisters. I care about my immigrant brothers and sisters. I care about, and notice in our little list we did not talk about what two things did we not talk about in this very powerful list that we did. Because there are two things that will polarize you in a heartbeat when you talk about people.
I have two.
Politics and religion.
There you go.
Right? But those are part of diversity too. And I specifically left them out because I want you to challenge yourselves to think about those things as secondary. Because people are people, and politics and religion kind of create walls that are harder to get over. So start thinking about people as people first, then deal with their politics and your own religious biases, if you have any. So thank goodness we absolutely understand that this is diversity and the guy before is diversity. So let me ask, if that's diversity, what is inclusion? Because we put those things together. Oh, Leanne, I'm going to take you to lunch wherever you live. Girlfriend, yes. Eliminating marginalization, exactly. These are the behaviors we create. The social norms we define that make sure people feel welcome. And I have to tell you that Leanne, and I hope I'm saying your name correctly, my daughter's name is Rhiann with an R, so I'm leaning on that. Yes, playing the music they like and dancing with them. Guys, all of our diversity efforts and all of our inclusion efforts don't matter if the recipient's experience isn't one of belonging. I love that. Invited to the party and asked to dance. This is not just about skin color. you guys. It's about lived experiences, period. I want to, before we take our first break, share something with you that absolutely changed a mindset for me that I didn't ever even consider. I, like many of you, start looking up one thing on YouTube and fall into the rabbit hole that steals hours and hours of your days and nights. And I don't know how I found it, but I ended up watching this video of a young man trying to go from Manhattan to Brooklyn to get a bagel. And the young man happened to have cerebral palsy and was in a motorized wheelchair. And it's about 6.5 minutes of enlightenment. Has anybody ever seen this video? It's called The Quest for the Rainbow Bagel. New York is hard for me to navigate, and I love NYC because of subways and buses and blah, blah, blah. It never once crossed my mind how a differently bodied person navigates the environment we all take for granted. Aside from like the obvious things like the ramps and the button on the door and the parking spot, my imagination never took me on a journey beyond that. You don't even have to look for it, Natalie. We're providing you with a list of resources of things to view and things you could read if you want to. And the video is called Zach Anner's Quest for the Rainbow Bagel. It is 6.5 minutes of beauty and pain. And he's, what a wonderful young man he is. I hope you guys watch it. I hope you enjoy it. I just want to make sure that when we talk about diversity and inclusion as a whole, we incorporating all kinds of people with all kinds of lived experiences, even if they're not ones we've ever even considered. And so I share that with you guys as a gift. Also is the link to the Harvard implicit bias test and a whole list of books and videos, some of which I'll mention now, some I won't. But what I would love to do is find out from you guys, what are you reading? What are you watching that's helping you build your muscle for anti-racism or towards building diversity inclusion mindsets? What kinds of things are you consuming? Ooh, cool TED Talks. White fragility. Oh my goodness, yes. Waking Up White by Debbie. I haven't heard of that one. The Hate You Give. Angie, is that the book or the movie, The Hate You Give? I love Jennifer Brown, Janet. How to Be an Anti-Racist. That's Dr. Kendi. That's Kendi, I believe. Yes, you will receive a recording. And guess what? This is so amazing because what Marlene's going to do at the conclusion of this is she's going to take your things that you are sharing and adding a peer resources page to your packet. Cool? So overcoming bias, nice. And guys, it can be books, it can be movies. So if you want to throw some things in, because, ooh, girl, Holly, code switching. Yes, I love that. Code Switch podcast. I don't have all the answers. I'm one person. Fair, I'm one person. And I don't know if you noticed this when Marlene introduced me, she did not say that I am a diversity inclusion anything. Did you guys catch that? Oh, I like Howard Ross's book. I'm not a diversity and inclusion specialist. I just want to make sure I throw that out there for you guys. And when we come back from a break, I'll tell you why I say that. So Ryan, are you still with us? Perfect. How about we take 5 minutes? You guys good for 5-minute walk around, grab a drink, handle your business? And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more. Thank you guys for this wonderful dialogue thus far. And let me stop my sharing so Ryan can give us a counter. Oh, you guys, I'm going through this list. These are fabulous. Thank you so much. I'm going to step away for a little break and play with my dog. I'll be right back.
Hello.
Hey, sister.
Hey, my friend.
All right. So hopefully everybody got a great snack or something. Give you guys a second to come back. Actually, can we get a hand raise or something to let me know, let us know you're back? That's what I'm talking about. Awesome.
Right. That works.
Fabulous, fabulous. All right. Well, thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed your break. Oh, thank you. I love visual things. TED Talks have changed the way I do presentations forever. Thank you, Teresa. Appreciate that. All right. So before we left for break, one of the things I was saying is I'm not a diversity inclusion specialist. I want to be real clear with that. I never pretend to be what I'm not. Fair? My background is in behavioral coaching. I help teams build great cultures based on emotional intelligence skills. In doing so, I always talk about diversity and equity and inclusion. That's just a part of it because it's a part of me and it's where I come from. And I will tell you guys, I've been reluctant, is that a good word, Marlene? Over the years to brand myself as a diversity and inclusion trainer, because I think it's so much more than that. And I just want to share with you guys what my mindset is. There is a difference between your IQ and your EQ. And we talk a lot about emotional intelligence and we read a lot about it in blogs, and it's the topic du jour a lot of the time. But the truth is, to create an environment of diversity and inclusion, to be an anti-racist, the first step is not what you read. It's knowing yourself. It's being honest about your bias and honest about what you can do with it. It's being honest about your emotions and being honest about how you can control them. So really quickly, this is like my standard emotional intelligence slide. I would love to just share this with you guys as a different kind of avenue to facilitate change in your atmosphere, in your culture, in your organization. It's got to start with self. So who's familiar with the 4 quadrants of emotional intelligence? Can I get an amen, a me too on that? I love it. Amen. Yes. If you're not, here's what I will say. We have multiple intelligences, and our intelligence quotient, or our IQ, the way we've been taught, is kind of set in our early childhood, and it's our capacity for learning. Oh, Jennifer, we got to have a conversation, girl. Find me on LinkedIn. Yes. Our IQ doesn't change very much once it's set. And it's a way of determining how our mind works. But our EQ, or our emotional intelligence, is so much a combination of nature and nurture. It is so much about your lived and learned experiences. And if we're going to change the world one office at a time, one family at a time, one person at a time, we cannot skip steps. I'm a product of a civil rights loving family. when my parents were children, they had to ride the back of the bus, the back of the streetcar. We're from New Orleans. They had to go to a segregated beach. They drank out of segregated water fountains. Yet, they did not just focus us on Black experiences growing up. When we moved to Japan, we learned that you have to respect everyone's culture. And we went to Saturday school, which was Japanese culture school, every Saturday. At 4 years old, I could count to 100 in Japanese. I'm about to 20 these days because I'm older, but we could order food in Japanese. We could say thank you in the proper formal way. And we knew how to kind of talk a little informally. And I think that all of that became a part of shaping how we understood ourselves. You can help someone build their emotional intelligence, but even more importantly, you can invest in yourself to build your own. And the first thing is just being honest with yourself about your feelings. There are things that get me really, really upset. I mean, really upset. When I see someone not open a door for an elderly person, you guys, it triggers me. It absolutely triggers me. When I see some woman's purse on the floor, half spilt over behind her chair, that worries me for her. And I want to hand her her purse and say, here, honey, hold on to this. But I also recognize I'm a Black woman. I want you guys to understand this. And I recognize that if she's rude to me because of her own biases, I need to know how that's going to make me feel up front. That's my self-awareness. But I also need to know how to manage my response when someone doesn't respond the way I want them to. And that's self-management. Domo arigato. Ah, so nice, Tim. So nice. Yes. But you guys hearing what I'm saying? Like, you have to know where you are. You have to know who you are. You have to know how people see you, regardless of the situation. That's your self-awareness. Reading books like DeAngelis's White Fragility, I can't tell you to read that. But the title itself is provocative. And if you want to know what it is, and you're not a more melanated person, you might want to read that for yourself to understand your own feelings. I can imagine it was a tough read, Teresa. And to be perfectly honest, I haven't read it for exactly that reason. I don't know that I was also the intended audience for White Fragility, to be perfectly honest. But it's to take yourself to that place says a lot about who you are. So thank you for reading it, Teresa. I thank you for that. And for the rest of you who've read it. The self-management piece is understanding that I get to choose how I respond to their reaction. Jerry, what are you saying? Yes. Yes, the 4 agreements. So good. Jerry, thank you for sharing that. Jennifer, I see your hand up. I just want to make sure. Do we need help with something, or can I answer a question for you? Okay, never mind. All right. I just want to make sure we're all taken care of here. Right now, where we are in our nation, self-awareness is like so high with so many people. What we've learned is that you can't be a bystander anymore. I can't be a bystander when I see someone discriminating against or being anything other than respectful to my LGBTQ brothers and sisters. As a Black woman, I can't be a bystander. I was working with the Girl Scout Council in New Jersey, and at one of their meetings, someone said something that I just loved. You can't be a bystander, be an upstander. I want to be an upstander. That means I have to manage my own emotions so that I can get to the 3rd quadrant, which is social awareness. and then move into relationship management. So today we're going to spend more time on the self side, if that's okay with you guys, because I think there's a lot out there about the social side and the relationship side. I think we know some of the right words to say, but are we speaking to ourselves well? And are we getting our questions answered for ourselves? So I'm not a traditional D&I practitioner. This is where my heart lives. Jennifer, like seriously, call me. This is where my heart lives. And I just feel the more you know about why you think the way you think, and the more you exercise the real choices you have and how you react or respond to something, that's what makes us better people. And that's what opens doors for others to feel like they belong, is we have to manage our own garbage first. So I apologize. I'm stepping off my soapbox about that. I hope you guys don't mind, but I want to be very, very clear. Like, my mission in life is like, gosh, I'm going to quote Rodney King. Why can't we all just get along? Like, understand who you are and understand that you can have a positive impact on the people around you. What I'd like to do is open up a discussion that is an ugly, sometimes difficult one, and I would like to do it with love, if you would allow me. Although we have talked about diversity meaning many things, 2020 was supposed to be a year of clear vision if you pay attention to marketing teams in corporate America. But this is not the vision we thought we would have. A lot of Americans are learning some not so great truths about this country that we love, and about the behavior of people who claim to love people, or not so much. So I would like, if you guys would join me, to have a dialogue about race. Are you guys comfortable enough to do that with me? Thank you. I appreciate that. This is such a hard topic. So I'm going to start it with like kind of a mind-blowing thing, because I saw this a little earlier. Holly, I've got your comment, and we're going to talk about that. So Holly asked something in the Q&A, and Holly, we're not going to let that go unanswered, okay? All right, so here's the thing. Race isn't a biological thing. It's not even real, people. It's a made-up social construct. But the idea of race has been around for so long. It is so real, and it is tangibly real in the lives of the people who suffer the most from the ills created around race. Are you guys with me? It's not biology. So there's this thing, and I've seen it when I was younger, and I mean, not much younger because I'm kind of old, but like, you look at the planet, look at the globe, and imagine the equator around the globe. The people who live closest to the equator have the darkest skin in the world, because the sun is closest to the earth around the equator. Like the tropics, Cancer and Capricorn, that creates a region on our globe where everything, all the natural resources flourish in that region. That's why we like island vacations. It's so beautiful. The flowers are prettier, aren't they? The fruit is sweeter. The gold is much better. The truth is that what determines my skin is darker than yours is the amount of pigment in my skin called melanin. That's it. And it's kind of a known fact that human beings are 99.9% alike across all so-called races. As human race, and thank you, Tracy, for that, we are almost like 99.9% the same. And there are more differences inside of an ethnic group than outside of an ethnic group. It's kind of crazy. There's some science on that. I'm not a scientist, but I love knowing that. And even furthermore, melanin only controls how your skin reacts to the rays of the sun. I tan just like some of you tan. I can burn like some of you burn. However, I will not burn nearly as fast as my lesser melanated friends. Like, fact. Is there anybody who would like to dispute that fact? I'm open to it. I didn't want to debate, but I'll debate you on that one. Yeah, no brave souls. I love it. All right. So that means that melanin does not dictate how smart you are, how well you speak, your potential for earning, your character, your trustworthiness. The color of your skin says nothing more about you than how your skin can process the rays of the sun. So who the heck decided that the color of someone's skin matters? I would love to blame that one on Thomas Jefferson Hillary, but it was actually before Thomas. I would love to blame it on him. But that's actually, it's before Thomas Jefferson. Would you guys be surprised if I told you there's an actual date and a place where whiteness became defined legally? Would you be surprised by that? Because it was. In 1680, in the Virginia colonies, the governing body called the House of Burgess posed this question in their meeting: what is a white man? And the reason they posed this question is because they were trying to determine who had power, who had citizenship, and who could own property in this new world. So how do we distinguish ourselves from the people who were here before we got here, which is our Native Americans, and the people we have enslaved and brought with us, which are people of African descent? How do we define it in such a way that it is very clear when we talk about a citizen, we know who we're speaking of? And the most apparent difference was color of skin. So whiteness was therefore defined legally as someone with no Negro or Indian blood, with exception, because there's always an exception, to the descendants of John Rolfe and Pocahontas, who would be considered white. Why are we not learning this in American history? Who knows? But look it up. That's where whiteness was defined in the New World. So when I tell you this, what are your thoughts on that? Because that's kind of crazy, right? Oh, Holly. Yeah, we only know what's beneficial for us to know, Teresa. Do you think they meant it in a hateful way in that conversation? I just want to ask you, what do you think it was? No truth or science behind race. You're right, Erica. Was there racism against blacks outside of the US? Prior, there was superiority because there were colonizers and colonists. But remember, colonialism was about money. It wasn't about people. And legally, to keep the money, we had to define why we felt, well, not we, I wasn't included, why some people felt they were better than others. But understand, it was about governance and property ownership. Yes, Jan, that is an argument that I will yell all day long. We have such a unique history with slavery, very different than European countries. The United States is very different. Here's the thing, and I just want to be really real with this. I wasn't here in 1619 when the first slaves rolled up. I wasn't here in 1680 when the House of Burgess defined whiteness legally. Were any of you here? No. We have to own our history. We have to know our history. We have to understand the ramifications of our history. And then we each have a part to play. Thank you, Holly. And how we deal with the ramifications or consequences of that history. Yes, there is racism. Let's be honest, Tim, humans are tribal. Would you guys agree with that? Look at Europe. They were always fighting the Romans against the Celts against the Saxons. Like, humans are tribal all over the world. But the distinguishing factor in our tribalism was not race for a very long time. A lot of it was religion back in the day, or what town you were from. Oh, he's a Nazarene. There were always stereotypes. There have always been differences. We've always been tribal, but we wrote race into laws. Tyler, we do. We do. What county do you live in? In New Orleans, it's what ward are you from? Absolutely. So I just, first of all, want you all to know, I can't see you. I don't know the color of your skin. I don't believe there's any difference between us in race. We're human. Now, once we step outside of this lovely pod of the Zoom webinar, in truth, people will see the color of your skin before they see anything else about you. It's just a thing. So what I would like to know is, what can I help with in this discussion, very frank discussion, about how do we solve this thing? How do we make a difference in it? And I want to go to what Holly asked in the Q&A, and I won't read it. You can read it. It's in the Q&A panel. But I will say this, Holly. You know who you are as a person. And you know what? Things will be misinterpreted. Remember? Ugh, I hate white women. It's not what I meant. But it came out of my mouth. But right now is a turning point in history. I think very strongly about the people who stood by during civil rights and watched the fire hoses on Black teenagers. And like, how do you not go home and know something's wrong with that? But society would not even let the good people speak out against the evils of the time. But Holly, and to all my lesser melanated brothers and sisters, the internet has deracialized so much of our communication. So much of it. There are so many avenues where you can stand up against something when you know it's wrong. And if you have Black friends, I think letting them know that you're doing the work and that your heart is with them and you stand up with them is a first step. I have to read what's happening in the chat. There were people who didn't come to your wedding. Oh my word. You know what though? Good riddance. Your wedding should be your happiest memory, Tim. And you chose the person to stand up with you. I know that's sad. I know that's painful, but bravo on you. It's just about being honest with yourself and doing what's right. Yes, thank you, Teresa. In Robin DeAngelis' book, she does state in that whites can educate themselves without the help of people of color. I can educate myself about, I'm gonna be real honest, about what it's like to be differently abled without interviewing people in wheelchairs or veterans who've lost limbs. You guys with me on that? There's so much media out there. There's so many resources out there. Girl, Teresa, I'm tired. I just chose to do this. So I just want to say, is there anything I can help with in this hour, 30 minutes, give or take, to answer? And because Holly was so brave by asking her question, Holly, you do not have to apologize for yesterday. Stand up and be proud of where you are today. Stand up and own, girl. It says here, I feel if I say something, it will be misinterpreted. So I find that I smile a lot more and don't say anything. I feel so awkward. Help. I'm going to tell you, you just try. Fair? Just try. When you were a baby and you crawled, you wanted to walk and it was scary to walk. And then you stood up and everybody said, yay. You need that yay to come from inside. Don't look to me for it. Don't look to people of color for it. But yay, you. And then you take your first step and it's wobbly. And if you fall down, get back up, girl. And own it. Just own it. And it will be such a refreshing change for what people of color are used to. And girl, I'm with you on this. Like, you can do it. You're here, you're talking, you're engaging, you're a part of this. And that is the first step. So can I ask, are there any questions that I can answer? Like in real life, don't go out and ask a Black person, okay? Like, don't do that. That's bad. But you paid for this, so ask a Black person for 22 more minutes. Katrina has a question. How do we take this and translate it to honest dialogue with our leaders and connections? That is an excellent question, Katrina. I will say this. I would take it first and sit with it and determine how you really feel about it. That's what I would do first. And then go have an honest conversation with your leaders and your connections to find out what level of priority this has for them. It is easier first to work with people who are like-minded before you evangelize to people who are not. I wouldn't do the big hurdle first. That's my advice. Find like-minded people and keep a conversation going. And from there, you can start building more. I know there are people on this call who do D&I work and it is their everyday bread and butter. And if you have a different idea to share with Katrina for her answer. Oh, Katrina and Teresa, you guys are all on all panelists. Let's go ahead and change your two to all panelists and attendees. So Katrina's question was, how do we take this and translate this to honest dialogue with our leaders and connections? And so my opinion, and I only hold up for me, I don't speak for all people of color, is find like-minded people to strengthen the conversations. I always believe in grassroots. It is a great question, Robin, it is. But I do want to open this up. What other answers do we have for Katrina? I can't speak for everybody. I could just tell you my belief. Does anybody have anything else to offer? Ooh, Jan. So the question is, in case you can't see it, I think you can see Jan's. Selling D&I to an all-white boardroom. I think I would recommend starting with selling them an idea of, thank you, Marielle, am I saying that right? Finding out a little more by stepping into a space that is talking about racial empathy as a part of it. But look, Marielle's here now, like Little Mermaid. Oh, Ariel, Marielle, love it. Judy, start with organizations, missions, and values and tied to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thank you, Judy. People are scared, Natalie, to say something. But you know what? I'm just going to tell you honestly. Ooh, tell your own story. Yes. I believe in what you are all saying. I think that's all it. I think, however, however, I'm going to be really honest in the moment. It can't start with Black or brown voices. It needs to start with white voices in an all-white room, because you will learn what those voices really have to say. And I know someone who's in that struggle right now, and what he's learned is there's not a willingness to hear or learn. And now he has a decision to make about, is this a space for him? I think if you take this on, understand that there is a need, and everyone does not recognize that there is a need also. Ooh, Erica, wow. A team of mostly white females, one Black female. Is it more hurtful or helpful in acknowledging what's going on? Erica, can I offer that you speak with the one Black female first and ask her if she is in a place where that becomes more of a burden or a relief for her if you only have one person of color? Because we're tired. Honestly, I'm psychologically, emotionally wrung out many days. And people are well-meaning, but sometimes I'm not ready to receive. I love that, Tracy. I don't know if I fully agree with that the sponsor should be white for a Black employee resource group. However, I think they should be very much involved. This is a very good conversation. Yes, please, you guys. Some people are still hitting all panelists. Real quick, in our Zoom webinar chat, go to the to panel and make sure the blue bar says all panelists and attendees. So Jerry says, living in Portland, oh, Portland's an interesting city. With the marches and the federal government enforcement, I'm often asked about the blurring of the Black Lives Matter message with the rioters. Okay, there's a lot happening here. So I'm going to try one at a time because Tyler, that's really a lot. All right, so in Portland, I think, what is that terminology? Don't kill the messenger. I think there are a lot of forces and a lot of voices trying to be heard in Portland, but I think the main message has still been Black Lives Matter. And there are other underlying messages there, but Portland's one city in the world, and the Black Lives Matter message has spread across the globe. And I find Portland interesting and heartbreaking because at the end of the day, I don't want to see anybody abused by anybody on television, to be perfectly honest with you. The color of their skin does not determine whether it's acceptable or not. And in America, we should all have a voice. So I do believe that sometimes the message gets blurred in Portland, but there's a fire burning in Portland that says a lot about the state of young people in this country, and they want change. And I'm all for that. They want change. Tyler, oh, the conversation at work, is that what you're saying is more about compliance, competition, and customer demand? Oh, with the leaders. The conversation needs to change to, how about being a decent human being and treating people like human beings first? That's my take on it. But also invite them to conversations like this. It doesn't have to be my conversation. Work with people who are comfortable in this conversation to help broaden minds. And oh my gosh, Angie, yes, use your privilege. Notice I haven't spent any real time on white privilege, but let me just tell you, you have the privilege to make a difference that I can't. Because some spaces, and I walk into lots of white spaces, some spaces, I'm just that Black woman. Whining like a Black woman. I don't even think I whine, but that's not the point. That's a perception. But white voices can change white problems. I believe Emmanuel Acho said that. White voices can change white problems. And right now, racism is a white problem, primarily in this country. Thank you, Robin. Let's see. Okay, there's so much happening here. Business perspective, employee experience, drives the customer experience. Yes, Teresa, our role is to ensure the best employee experience. Yes. Use your privilege and be courageous. Yes. The leadership is not. Teresa, thank you for saying that. Building safety. Let me tell you how a conversation I've had in the past has gone. So the Black people here keep grumbling about blah, blah, blah. This has been presented to me this way. And I just need to know, what do we need to do so they can focus on doing their jobs? And someone asking me that on how to change an employee culture. Super wrong-headed question. Super wrong-headed question, right? I think inviting leadership to calls where they can ask questions anonymously, like this one. I think Judy Kay also does diversity and inclusion training. Judy, please drop your info in the chat. We have not yet met in person, but I know that's going to happen. I think there's so many facets of this. Mine is just about starting a conversation. But the conversation, this is about starting it. The conversation must continue with action. Oh, Judy, of course, girl. Hey, listen, there's enough room in this space for all voices. And by the way, that means white voices too. Jennifer Brown is a white diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant who rocks my world here in Oklahoma. Like, this is a shared space too for inclusion. Yes, Judy, we need everyone on board. I think this is I don't even know what to do with the rest of this conversation. I think you guys are helping one another. Leilani, yes, it has. Leilani's statement is that COVID-19 has brought in Asian racism and associate Asians with the cause of COVID. My very best friend in the whole wide world is Filipina, and she's been called, Chinese and every negative slur for Chinese. And, you know, she calls me and she's just like, what do I say? Because the right answer is not, I'm not even Chinese. What can I say? Isn't that awful? Like, that's what she's worrying about. If she says, well, actually, I'm Filipina, not Chinese, like, that's not the right answer. COVID-19 is a virus. Just like the plague was a plague. And I think that is awful to associate a microorganism with an ethnic group of people to scapegoat. It's not okay. And Leilani, I am very familiar with some conversations happening in this part of the country. I don't live on the coast. I don't know how bad it is. And I think that we need to hear more Asian voices of what that experience really is. Jerry, what do I tell her? I tell her that, you know, if that makes you feel better, I just tell her to tell them, if it makes you feel better to reduce the most devastating thing that's happened to us as a nation to a racial slur, then that says a lot about you. And I would wish you would put on a mask when you do it. That's what I told her to say. Like, don't buy into the lowest common denominator of it. The action is, how do we end this thing? Lebanese and Syrian 9/11. Oh, that was, yeah. Marielle, I that's a sore spot for me. By the way, I live in Bible Belt, Oklahoma, and went to Morocco in 2017. And I'm pretty sure there were prayer groups praying that I wasn't converted to Islam, and they thought I was going somewhere to meet terrorists. I have dreadlocks too, so I'm sure that didn't help them. But at the end of the day, people say hurtful things because they're uneducated and ignorant people. Okay, let's read what Hillary has to say. Can you read for me while I take a sip of water, Arlene? I apologize, you guys.
That's okay. So Hillary's saying, I'm taking a risk here, but it feels important to me to raise. I think well-intentioned white people want to understand better what they literally should do. I do understand that rushing to a solutions-oriented discussion prematurely can be problematic, but how do we help well-intentioned white people understand tactically what things they should do, in addition to high-level concepts like treat people like people and be courageous?
Good. Keep going.
She just says, this seems important to me because so many people don't even realize how unconscious bias shows up and how to interrupt it and take anti-racist actions. What are the actions white people should take?
Hillary,
Love it.
Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your vulnerability, and thank you for your specificity. I have a few ideas, so let's go on. Number one is to listen for understanding. Hillary, you were right there for me. So many people see what's on the news and they're bombarded with all these images that they're actually not taking the time to understand the story of where all of this is coming from. So the first thing is, whatever your feelings are when you see a picture like this, sit with it and dissect it and try to understand. I think that this main sign in this picture is so powerful. Racism is so American that when you protest it, people think you are protesting America. Like, oh my goodness. If we can get past being offended at this, then we need to understand, why would somebody have to write that? It does. Why would somebody have to say Black Lives Matter? Why would somebody have to say that white silence equals violence? Or whatever those signs are. I think listening for understanding comes from asking yourself questions. And that is the first thing that should be done. This is all coming from somewhere. Where is it coming from? And you do that by putting your feelings and your so-called understanding to the side and actually look at it logically. Like logically, that statement is such a strong statement. People choose that. So American that when someone protests it, people think you are protesting America. That's how strong racism is. I think, how do we help white people? How do we help white people not become defensive? I think we gently ask questions. You seem to have a lot of feelings about that. There seems to be a lot of anger there. Where is that coming from? I think when they ratchet it up, we take it down. Because if we get into a yelling match, Robin, nobody wins. That's a debate. There's a winner and a loser, and it's the one who gives up. Yes, and yes, there is embarrassment. There is shame. There is guilt, but there is also a tinge of privilege on top that says, I've never had to think about this, so I don't want to think about it now. But the truth is, racism affects all of us. It impacts all of us. It limits all of us. So I would say first tool to answer Hillary's well-worded comment and questions is that we have to just stop talking and start. I say we like I'm white. I'm not white. But I think everyone should take a step back and stop talking and start listening. Because that's how we change things. I will tell you, I grew up in a full gospel Baptist church family. My grandmother was the usher, my grandfather was the deacon, my mother and all her siblings, and they did not understand the LGBTQ struggle at all. But when it came down to my dad getting sick with cancer and talking to my mom, because this stuff was happening in the news at the same time, the marriage rights case, and talking with my mom and like, Mom, how would you feel if you couldn't be in the hospital next to Dad while you're fighting for his life? How would it make you feel if you couldn't say, this is my husband who is sick because somebody believed you shouldn't be married? And I will tell you that the moment it becomes personal, somebody you know or something relatable, it opens the doors to understanding. And that's one person at a time. It's having the emotional intelligence to hold your anger back and temper your emotions and come back quiet to their blustering. People bluster because they know they're wrong. I've actually, and I will tell you, I say this, I go to an evangelical church, which is kind of crazy because I live in Oklahoma, but it's predominantly white, and people will tell me all kinds of things about Black people, and I'm just going to tell y'all, I'm just like, no ma'am, no sir, that is not correct. No sir. And I'm as cool as a cucumber. Now, when I get home, then I'm like, can you believe what that person had the nerve? But in the moment, no sir, no, that is absolutely incorrect. Sir, do you understand where this came from? I'm happy to tell you if you're willing to hear, and you have to just take it down a notch. That's what I found to be successful. If you can shake your fist and get someone to listen to you, more power to you, and I would like the secret. But I don't know what it is. So the first part is listening for understanding. That's working on self, and that is what white people can do, Hillary. But the second is choosing empathy. And it is a choice to empathize. What do you guys think I mean by choose empathy? Do you think I mean be empathetic to racists? I just thought I'd throw that out there. No, Merlene? understanding a situation that's not your own. Oh, Natalie, Ashley, perfect. Understand another perspective or where someone's coming from. Use our thinking brain. Oh, yes, listen and believe. Guys, empathy is honestly, Jan, booyah, trying to make a connection to someone's emotion. You listen and you believe what people share. I'm going to tell you guys a little story. It has nothing to do with race. I have 2 daughters, and I separated from their father when they were 3 and 5. And I would say I raised them by myself, but I didn't. You guys know it takes a village, and they had wonderful relatives and my parents there to help people, to help raise the kids. So if I tell you that both my daughters graduated college at 4.5 years, both with dual majors, and both had already signed an employment agreement out of state prior to walking across the stage at graduation from their respective universities. What feeling am I conveying when I talk to you about my daughters? Pride. Proud. That is the feeling. So when I share this story with you, to choose empathy is to acknowledge that's what I'm feeling. You know what, Keisha? It sounds like you're really proud of your daughters. And you know what I'm going to say? My smile's so big it touches my ears. Oh my gosh, yes, I am. Yes, I am. In the back of my mind, I'm like, you get me. You get it. You heard me. Now that's so big. It's like my teeth are back in my ears. You guys are with me on this? If I tell you my father passed away from cancer after a 4-year battle, but left my mother with no outstanding bills, the ability to pay off their home, and no need for her to go back to work, so she could at least have a chance of living the life they had planned together. What are my feelings? So that's more complicated. Sorrow, pride, love, pain, sadness, gratitude, admiration, because everything's not simple, right? So if I share that with you and you want to build trust with me, then you have to acknowledge that too. You know what, Keisha? I can tell you still get a little choked up when you talk about your dad, but it must make you feel so good to know that he was so thoughtful and so diligent to take care of your mom. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to nod and I'm going to say, you get me. And now I feel closer to you. See, these things are a choice. So when someone shares their lived experience, we have to listen to understand what the situation is. And then we get to choose empathy to say, I can see this is impacting you in this way. And they will see that you're a genuine ally and not a performative one. What do I mean by that? Genuine versus performative. Yes, Natalie. Genuine means invested. Performative is not. Genuine is trust. Performative is, truthfully, it's a self-indulgence. Not putting on a show. See, I know so many non-melanated people who are so good at this. I don't work for TTA. I work with TTA, and I'm an independent contractor. When the George Floyd killing hit the news waves, you guys, I felt like a layer of my skin was peeled back and all my nerves were exposed. I don't know if you can even relate to what that feels like. Just like one more thing, one more time is like, I can't. And I mean, we were in quarantine. I couldn't walk out my house anyways, but I don't feel good walking into white spaces right now because someone says the wrong thing. I'm going to really deeply feel it. Can anybody relate to what I'm saying right now? Like my nerves were just like on fire. Yet I had business to take care of because my business had been reduced because of COVID-19. I'm stuck in my house with a little dog who doesn't always like me. I'm just going to be really honest. She's used to me traveling so she could go play with her other dog friend. So she's not feeling me. And then this horrific thing happens on TV. And I am making business calls with TTA. We're trying to reschedule gigs that were previously booked. And I will tell you that before that week, I've been asked to teach D&I so many times. My answer was no, that's not my thing. That's not my thing. That's not my thing. I don't want to monetize this conversation any more than I do. But I got on a phone call with Christine Bradley talking about rescheduling something. And that was our intended purpose of the call. And the entire call was, how are you doing? How are your daughters doing? I can't imagine what you're feeling right now. We're having very tough conversations in my house with my kids and my family. How are you holding it together? What can we do for you? And although I was not expecting it, it was exactly what I needed in that moment. And for the next 2 weeks, every business call I had, it was like a freaking miracle with these people I have built a trusting working relationship with, and I will name them. It was Christine, and it was Nikki, and it was Marlene from TTA. Every one of those conversations, multiple conversations, were framed in such a way that if they're asking how I'm doing today, I could say, I feel very Black today. Do you guys understand what I'm saying by that? And it wasn't about their feelings. It was about my feelings. And I woke up in the middle of the night one night and I sent Christine a message on Teams and I said, yes, I'm ready to have this conversation with clients. Yes. We need safe spaces to feel what we feel and not be judged for what we feel. I'm pretty sure Marlene didn't know what I was saying. I'm just feeling really, really blackety black right now. Like, that doesn't even make sense in words. But she understood I was upset. This is a real thing that affects real people. And I just ask that you bring your genuine self to this. Katarina, thank you. And the truth is, I actually like talking about this. I talk about it all the time, don't I, Marlene? Because it's my life. I'm comfortable with it. But I think now I'm learning it's my calling. And I'm happy to share this with you guys if it helps you find your calling and it helps you start harder conversations. And to get back to Hillary's question, because I want to make sure I answer this specifically, Hillary, we've got choices that non-people of color can make, and that is choosing language. All right, I'm not leaving you hanging, girl. You can make a difference in any space you're in if you take your focus off what you meant to say and put it on how it is received. Is that kind of making sense? Take yourself out of it and look at who's receiving your message. I went to all-white high school here in Moore, Oklahoma, and all my little friends would come home from the summer, their little summer vacations, and they'd compare their tans to mine. And can I tell you, that was so hurtful to me. Your temporary fashion tan is not the same as waking up Black every morning. I don't know anyone who was told they couldn't take an advanced class because they had a tan. I don't know anyone who was told they don't belong in a neighborhood because they have a tan. I don't know anyone who was pulled over with a gun drawn because they have a tan. That is not equal. the intention is good and it's so harmless and it's so well-meaning. It means I want to be like you or we're similar, but the impact is something altogether different. Hillary, is this helpful for you? Kind of what you were asking for? Jerry, yeah, that's been my whole life. All right. Oh, Judy, yes. Racialized language. Everything dark is bad and everything white is pure. I do like being in the black. It's okay. Yeah, please, please, please. There is a mindset of why do they. There's a book called Why Do All the Black Kids Sit Together in the Cafeteria? And I hear that a lot. Again, I navigate in white spaces all the time. Well, Keisha, my very close dear black representative, why do black people always do this? And why do black people always do that? And that's not the right question. The question is, why do we? What are we doing? It's a change of mindset, and that change of mindset changes our language. That book is already, I believe, on the list. Leanne, I'll double check. I go to a predominantly white church. When I first started going to the church, I was asked, ooh, yes, insider, outsider culture, yes. I was asked, why do you think more black people don't come to our church? We're near Air Force Base, lots of black people at the Air Force Base. We're also closer to a Hispanic part of town, right? Why don't they come here? Our doors are open. And the question is not why do or don't they, it's what do you do? That primarily attracts white people. That's the real question. If I look at your brochure, if I look at your website, is there anything there that says you are welcome? If there's not, then you're focused on the wrong thing. I don't know, is that helpful? Tam, you are so right. Insider, outsider culture. That's happened to me a lot, moving so much. There's also this mindset of they should. Black people should. They should pull themselves up by their bootstraps. They should. But the truth is, or we could open doors that we open for everyone else. We could put our stereotypes and our biases to the side and get to know this individual as a real person. And these are these little questions we have that we're maybe not comfortable with saying out loud, but I don't know what's in your head. I just know what happens in mine. And this is my all-time favorite. And I'm just going to say it. Can I be blunt, you guys? Can I be blunt? Like, I'm about to be like cold and raw. We don't need a white savior. We don't need, like people of color, we don't need a white savior. We don't need somebody to tell us all the things we need to do to overcome our oppression. We did not oppress ourselves. We are oppressed by a system supported by a group of people. And white people should probably, and I'm going to say that in quotes, stop telling black people what they should do. Instead, ask about experiences and learn. Get out of tell mode. Because I'm going to tell you, frankly, you guys, I grew up in America mostly. I know all about white culture. So do most, whoops, I went too far. So do most people of color. Because everything is white normative. Judy, did I say those words right? White normative? Two people are walking down the street and one guy's black. What? Two people are walking down the street. I think that there is a mindset that says we're superior even when we don't think that's what's being said. And it's definitely how it's received. I went to a course where about difficult conversations where the guy asked, has anybody ever been held up by a knife or a gun? And I raised my hand. And this guy wasn't even American, he was German. Then he comes to me later and says, I'm so sorry you grew up in such a harsh situation with so much crime. How did you overcome that? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, it's 4 hours later. What are you talking about? He said, well, you'd been held up with a knife or a gun. I said, yeah, some kids in a school I went to pulled out a knife on me to see if they cut a black girl's skin if the blood was red. I didn't grow up in the ghetto. I didn't have like this horrible, impoverished experience. My parents were in the military. But the telling comes with all of those stereotypes. The asking breaks the stereotypes. Hillary, yeah, jaw drop. And he was so mortified because he thought he was so liberal. And I know he meant well because he was coming to me as a person afterwards saying, you know, trying to empathize with my experience, but he assumed my whole experience. My experience was I integrated to school in 6th grade in Upper Michigan, and some boys had a bet that Black people didn't actually have red blood. And they didn't cut me, by the way, because a teacher came and stopped them. But that was actually my real experience. Brings a different element to the room, brings a different vibe to the room. We get to choose how we interact with people. And we have to acknowledge we don't know what we don't know. If my friend wasn't from the Philippines, I wouldn't know anything about Filipino culture. And although I know about Filipino culture and Japanese culture, I cannot presume to know very much about Vietnamese culture. It's a completely different group of people. And so when I speak with someone who's Vietnamese, I ask questions, and I recommend you do too. So thoughts, comments, criticisms? Robin, you're so correct. And he meant the best by it, but he was still making assumptions. I can tell my own story, just like Robin, you can tell your own story. I don't have to make any assumptions. I can just ask, what was that like? What did that feel like? I'm sorry you went through that. You know, when you talk to your friends, what do they say? The things that we need to do for racial empathy and equity are the things we need to do with anyone else who's marginalized. Stop assuming that our experiences are the superior experience. And I can say us on that because I've never lived in a wheelchair or I've never been hearing disabled. You guys with me on that? It's about people in general. Absolutely, absolutely. We have become a tell culture. All right, so I have a question. I have one more big activity. Hearing experiences like, aw, thank you, Hillary. It doesn't. You know, so in case you didn't catch it, what Hillary said is white people talking just to white people alone doesn't create the right understanding. White people have to understand other people's stories. You know, in one of our sessions, I think it was the one with TTA, somebody asked about Oscars So White. Do you guys remember that year? About like the whole thing about Black artists and actors and directors not getting an opportunity to be celebrated for their art. And the person who asked the question actually was Asian American. He's like, well, don't you think it can go too far? But the truth is, once a door is open, it's open, you guys. And we would never have had a great movie like Crazy Rich Asians if we didn't start opening doors for our Black and brown brothers of African descent. Right now, we are getting so much talent from Nigeria and Ghana and people of ethnicities that we've never seen before. And when they tell stories, we learn more about the human race, not just about race. I don't know. This is what excites me, by the way. And let's see. Oh, 13th, Ava DuVernay. Yes, yes, please, please watch 13th. It will break down systemic racism for you in a way you can never unsee or unknow. Leanne says, where can we read about more Black artists that you mentioned? I think I will answer you this way, Leanne. The next time you're doing a scroll through Netflix or Amazon Prime or anything, I'm gonna ask, I'm gonna ask that you do this. Don't go for what you know. If you've got blonde hair and blue eyes, don't pick the movie with the cute blonde-haired, blue-eyed person. Pick the movie with the person with dark skin and dark hair. It doesn't matter if they're from Vietnam or Syria or Africa. I'm telling you guys this. Learn about somebody else's story. There's a sociological, and I wish I had the names and dates. It's something I heard about when I was in school, but there's this sociological experiment done in the heart of Africa where a very well-known English story was told. And that story was the story of Hamlet. And guess what? In a tribe in the Congo, the truths of Hamlet are the same as they are in the center of London. I want you guys to really understand that. Good Trouble is magnificent. There are so many good pieces of art by people of so many denominations, and I could definitely name millions of them. I would say look to your peers here because they have some great ones. I also have links to some videos that are really good. I will tell you who my hero of the moment is right now is a football player named Emmanuel Acho, who does a series called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. I love Acho's vibe, his spirit, his desire to bridge peace, and his willingness to call out BS when he sees it. I'm going to be real honest about that. I think the tide is turning, things are changing, and it makes me very happy and very hopeful. And just enjoy. And I brought this up in one of the classes, you know, The Color Purple did not win an Oscar. Yet, I don't know anyone who needed to be Black to enjoy The Color Purple. Oh yeah, Emmanuel Acho's on YouTube, and he's also on Apple TV Plus also. Yeah, he has an interview with Oprah Winfrey, a 2-part interview with Oprah Winfrey on Apple TV Plus. It's really nice. Yeah, Color Purple is a wonderful story about pain and how people bridge through pain. The color of the people's skin is significant to certain circumstances, but not to the experience. Cool? All right. So really, I have like 2 things left. I have a little activity for you guys on first impressions. If you're up for it, does anybody need a break? Because I think we can push through this. And thank you all for jumping in. This is the thing I love about this format. A break, yes, please. Hey, Ryan, you with us? Can we do a quick 5? Do a quick 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and close this out.
Sounds good.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, so saying hello to everybody. And welcome back. Ryan is the best. He's behind the scenes, but he is our technical guru on this, and I love the countdown timer. Very cool. I know, right? Ryan and Marlene are the best partners. Thank you so much. All right. So let's just, can I get a whoop whoop or whatever? Are we all back? Whoop whoop. Nice, nice. Thank you so much. Awesome. Thanks, Tracy. Whoop whoop. Y'all, it's almost Friday. And I'm going to milk this weekend because we're going to get 100-degree weather next week. So, woo. All right. So why don't we round this out with like an activity and some takeaways? How you guys feel about that? Just do a little quick activity. I'm going to ask for some rules around this activity. Obviously, trainers love to borrow and modify, and this was shared with me by another trainer, and then I borrowed it and modified it. If you've done this before, I ask that you kind of play it cool and play along. If you think you recognize something or someone, I'm going to ask that you keep it to yourself so we can go through the whole activity. Fair? Are we good? Just say yes. Thank you. Yes. Okay, so what we're going to do is do an activity based on first impressions. This activity is actually based off a chart from a journal of sociology. I'm going to say the word right. It is from a journal of personality and social psychology. Got it? I said it correctly. And we're just going to start. So what's going to happen is I'm going to show you a picture and launch a poll. When you look at this person, just on your gut, we want you to say whether or not you feel they convey high or low warmth. And also, do they convey high or low competence? We'll go through a series of 6 pictures, and then we'll come back and reveal the answers and find out who these people are. Again, if you know who they are, keep it to yourself, please. You guys ready to go? So when you look at this gentleman, does he convey high or low warmth? And because I think we typed too much, the word warmth fell off the first question. But the first one is warmth, and the second is competence, high or low competence. You guys are very good button pushers. Doing well. We'll give about another 15 seconds. Okay, going once, going twice. We'll go ahead and end number 1. All right, you guys ready for number 2? Going once, going twice. When you look at this woman, does she convey high or low warmth or high or low competence? Nicely done. Give it a few more seconds. All right, stopped rolling in. So we'll go ahead and end this one. 2 down, 4 to go. This person, high or low warmth or high or low competence? No one's going to say who it is. Don't you do that. Got this. All right, couple more seconds. We've got this. There's no right or wrong answer for your first impression either. All right, we're going to go ahead and close this poll. And move on. This lovely lady, high or low warmth. You guys know the drill. High or low competence. Well, you guys voted really fast on this one. It is, but Tim, yes, it's a first impression judgment, but we operate on first impressions all the time. That's the honest to goodness truth. All right, maybe 5 more seconds. I am so glad you are definitely beyond most people. I try to avoid that. I catch myself on a regular basis. All right, I'm going to close this out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just a couple more to go. You guys know the deal. Let me go ahead and put the poll up. The voting's going much faster now, Marlene. Okay, give it about 5 more seconds. All right, go ahead and shutting this down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the last one. Get that poll launched for you. And you guys know what to do. Everybody's got the hang of it now. All right, give it about 5 or 6 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So can we have a discussion about this or a little dialogue? Let's talk. If you rated someone with high warmth, why? Like, what made you feel someone was warm? Approachable. Feeling some bias. Teresa, thank you for your honesty. Facial expression. Smiles are a bias. Ah, nice. Woo! Wow, Tim. That's happened to me as well. You did know some of them, Jan? That's okay. Ooh, you don't know the people, but I like that, Holly. You based it on people they remind you of. Got it. Well, what about competence? What makes you feel like somebody's competent? I is ethnicity. That's honest, Tracy. Thank you for your honesty. What else would make you feel? The way they're dressed? Nice. I love it. I love it. You know, it's really funny to Tim's story about the Cadillac dealership. I live in Oklahoma and nobody dresses up here. Like nobody. I like that. You felt uncomfortable judging competency. Jan, that's a good thing. Tyler, that's a good thing as well. Because you don't know. You haven't said a word to them. And that kind of is the point, isn't it? But first impressions are first impressions. I'm going to tell you, somebody pulls up with what my daughter calls a white creeper van in front of our house. I'm uncomfortable with that. And I'm okay with being uncomfortable with that. So before we look at who these people are, let's talk a little bit about what this journal article says. That when we see someone who appears to be high in warmth, but we judge them low in competence, they fall under a stereotype of being maternal or paternalistic. And we tend to feel that way about people based on age. And I just saw somebody who just said that. Age and wisdom. We tend to think of housewives or disabled people a little more social, a little less tactical. And so knowing this is a stereotype for you, if it is, then you now have a tool to overcome it. We also seem to think that people we don't find warm and we don't find them competent or assume they are competent, we tend to associate those people as contemptuous, low status, welfare recipients, poor people, thugs. I hate that word, thugs. Because they don't give us the clothes and the smile, we tend to diminish their worth or diminish their value. On the high side for warmth and high competence, the people that we admire. Bugs, thugs. When we call someone a thug or a gangster, it's because the way they dress and their countenance on their face. I know, right, Tim? Low, right? Or you need your car fixed? Exactly. Exactly. We tend to admire people that have high warmth and high competence. We trust them easily. And then, of course, people with low warmth and high competence, we actually become envious of them and create stereotypical tropes for them. And this is where we sometimes find people with stereotypes against high-performing people of different ethnicities, Asians, Jews, because we value warmth in American culture that may not be valued the same way in other cultures. Also, feminists, isn't that interesting? We have the trope of the angry feminist. Black female CEOs, angry Black woman. She may be competent, but not likable. So these things exist in our society, and understanding what you're triggered by will help you overcome it. You can't overcome it until you know it. So to close this little activity out, what was that, snaps? Oh, Kamala Harris is the perfect example. Michelle Obama. And honestly, it doesn't even matter how much warmth, it's not accepted warmth. And it's unfortunate. You know, I was talking to a group of women last week, and this is kind of what it came out to. You put a man in a boardroom and he bangs the table to make a point because he's passionate about it. And he's a strong man, passionate about his point. You put a white woman in a room, and I'm going to say it just the way it is. She bangs the table because she's passionate about something. She's a little hysterical. And she gets her emotions, get her all caught up. You put a Black woman in a boardroom. She bangs the table to make a point. She's an angry, aggressive Black woman. She's the B word. You got it, Tracy. You put a Black man in a boardroom, and he bangs the table. And guess what? He is threatening in the same room. Our stereotypes form how we see the world. We got to break those things. Oh, let's not even go with the nasty. So just know, and by the way, can I just be honest? If an Asian person, male or female, walked into a room and banged the table to make a point, most of us would just be hanging there with their mouths open. Because we have these preconceived ideas of how people act based on these unwritten rules in society. But the truth is, they're all people making a passionate point. That's the truth. So You guys want answers on who these people are? And then you can call out when you see them if you know who they are. So you guys ready? All right. So anybody know who this gentleman is? Tell me, please. Has anybody seen him before? No. Well, let me show you what you said about him. You guys said very low warmth and a little more leaning towards low on the competence. What do you think he conveys to get that kind of response? I think the word Crips on the sign is a big one. Let me just be real for me. Tough guy, gang member, etc. He's not smiling. Let's learn a little more about him. All right. Stop sharing, close this out. So guys, this is John Fetterman. He is actually highlighted on, I think, W. Kamau Bell's show on CNN right now. He has a master's degree from Harvard, and he was the mayor of his town in Braddock, Pennsylvania, and helped turn around a poor, underperforming town by offering free GED courses and work-study courses. People from all over the world came to his little town in Pennsylvania to see how he created an economic boom, and he is now the current lieutenant governor of the state of Pennsylvania. Nice. Tattoo is his zip code. Isn't that crazy? We don't know until we talk. So let's look at the next one. Does anybody know who this lovely lady is? Miranda, you know who it is? Tell us if you know. You do, but you won't say, Leanne. You have to say. That's what this part's about. You don't have to. So you guys all agreed that high confidence and high warmth. Yes, Leanne, it is. It's President Patil. She was the president of India. First female president in India. This woman is an economist. She's an attorney, and she is beloved in India. Every year when it's her birthday, the whole country loses their mind. Am I saying that right, Leanne? A grumpy old woman. Actually, she's a serious woman. A serious woman who has serious power and made serious change in her country. She's just not somebody trying to plan a wedding or in a Bollywood movie. Guys, we just don't know. Let's look at the next one. I love these. All right, go ahead, spill it. Ted Bundy. Yep. Some of us may or may not know that, but it is Ted Bundy. I will tell you, when I went through this activity for the first time, I felt like I should know who he was, but I didn't know who he was. And all I kept thinking was, I feel like he thinks I should trust him and like him, but something about his eyes tells me I shouldn't. Yes. Oh. But in order to lure people, he had to be able to convey warmth. You guys with me on this? To do what he did, which, by the way, was a lot. To do what he did, he had to be good at it. But that face and what we're trained to trust allowed him to do the horrible things he did. Evil uses the same tools as good. Yes, he was a very, very smart man, but not a very good person. All right, so we'll move on to something a little lighter. Who knows who this lovely lady is? Yes, Miranda, it's Katherine Johnson. And you guys nailed this because she looks like your grandma who bakes you cookies, and she looks super smart, and I'd be very disappointed if you said anything horrible about my hero. But who is Katherine Johnson? Hidden Figures, absolutely. She was the subject of a movie recently called Hidden Figures. She was a mathematician who actually calculated all kinds of orbital and crazy math by hand to check and double check the brand new computers that were bought into NASA. She actually helped save the Apollo 11 mission, and she was a subject of a movie. She's been my hero since I was about 13 or 14. My dad was in the Air Force and always pushed mathematics on us. And I would say, girls don't do math, and he would tell me about Miss Johnson. There's a lady working in NASA who can do math better than a computer, and she's black. Okay, tell me more about this lady. This is a wonderful, wonderful, strong, brilliant lady who unfortunately just passed away not too long ago. All right, we have 2 more. Are you guys enjoying this? No, Robin, there was not, but there will be now, I promise you. Yes, she's brilliant. One of my favorites. All right. Who knows who this lady is? What do you guys think? I'll share your results. So it's kind of tipping towards high warmth, tipping towards high competence. Is she a reporter? She is not a reporter. Almost every person on this call has probably heard her name before, though. Low. This, my dear friends, is Miss Valerie Plame. She was a CIA operations officer operating in the Middle East when a petty member of our United States government decided to unmask her name and out her for political reasons while she was on a mission. And now she is an author, and she writes fiction and nonfiction about spycraft. This lady is a spy. Look her up. Interesting story. And she speaks publicly as well. I know she looks like a soccer mom / former beauty queen. Brilliant and fearless. Can you imagine your career being ended because somebody decided to play politics? Oh, bitter beauty queen. Oh, that's kind of a cool little BBQ. Yeah, no, she's actually someone pretty fearless and a true patriot. But we don't know. What do her looks have to do with her ability in spycraft? Probably helps her, honestly. But yeah, I love that. And the last one, honestly, this is the one that makes all the difference for me. Does anybody know who this man is? Bias is super crazy and we don't have control. So let's see what you guys rated him. Most people said low warmth and high competence. I will tell you, he is the most impressive person on this list. Let me tell you about him. I would like to introduce to you Huang Wenzai. He is a Chinese billionaire who lives on less than 8% of his income annually and gives the rest of it away. If there is a flood in Pakistan, he is there. Tsunamis in Japan, he is there. Earthquakes in Haiti, he is there. And not just for the initial relief, but to help start building back the infrastructure to help people get back to their lives. He lives on less than 8% of his, and he doesn't miss a cent of it. Oh, Miranda, you're welcome. I like anything that gives me the feels, right? But we started with our circle, didn't we? We started with who influences us. The only way we can learn more about other than our circle, is to look outside of it. This guy just makes me feel so good. What'd you guys think of that activity? I can't give you this one because it's just slides, but you can do an activity like this on your own. Would you guys agree? You can do this yourself. I highly recommend that you do. And you don't have to put Ted Bundy in it. Like, just put someone, find a Bernie Madoff or somebody. I had help, Miranda. I have a good friend who also does this work, we were building it together, and she got the idea from somebody else, and we just keep building and sharing and sharing and sharing. So please, I think it's look for the pictures that make you think differently than who the people are. And yes, our bias is always at work. It never takes a holiday, ever. So what I'd like to do, just to kind of close out a little bit, is to talk about how do we give people the stage for their stories. And so Hillary, I guess this is for you as well. Here are 7 things that you can do right now, because I have to get in the social media side of things, to start promoting inclusion just in your circle. All right, so I would grab a pen and paper for this, and I'll try to go kind of slow. You guys ready? When you listen, do so without interruption, contradiction, or comparison. Like, let someone tell their whole story. You can ask questions to learn more, but it is not your time. Okie doke. Number 2, keep doing what you're doing, guys. You're on the right track. Keep educating yourself. Flip through, watch documentaries. I am not gay and I am not transgender, but I watch everything. Everything. There's a great documentary. I think it's called Disclose. Help me out, somebody. Disclosure. It's on Apple TV Plus, and it's about actors and actresses who are transgender, and it's amazing. And it just totally opened my eyes to something I didn't know anything about, and I loved it. Because guess what? They want me. They want the same things in life I want in life. So just keep continuing to learn and to grow. Oops, I don't know how I just did that. Seek contradictory information. If you hear someone say, oh, well, Black people this, or gay people that, or fill in the blank with marginalized group of people, before you say, yeah, say, why would they say that? What's the truth? Challenge yourself on a regular basis. I never thought about getting around in New York on a wheelchair. I saw Zach Anders' video, and the next time I was in New York, I was just like, oh my word. And guess what happened? Then I started thinking, oh my gosh, how do you navigate New York City if you're like a single mom with sick babies? How do you get them to the doctor if you rely on public transportation? And then it's like, oh, but what if you need something big in your house? How do you get that home? I started thinking about all kinds of things I never thought about before. Stories from the stage, we're going to write that down because I need to see that. Work in progress. Thank you guys for these. Thank you, Marsha P. Johnson. I don't know what that is, Jerry. I'm going to have to look those up. Marlene, we're capturing all of these, correct? Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Also, here's a big one. Don't rely on marginalized people to broaden your experiences. You can do them yourselves. I go almost every year to like an Irish festival. I'm not Irish. I don't really like Irish food, but what I do love is Irish music and Irish dance. And I'm not always fully accepted there. People are like, what are you doing here? Like, what are you doing here? I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I want to learn about Irish culture. Or Turkish culture, or African culture. There are so many ways you can learn about people different from you guys. And you don't have to take a posse with you. It's okay to go by yourself. Go to a Latin festival, go to a Caribbean festival, visit a foreign country, open a book. There's so many ways we can get better at seeing the world fully and the people in it fully, more fully. Call yourself out on your assumptions. Go to a church. Yes, Tim Rogers. Go to a church with a different religion than yours. Go see a political speaker who does not align with your political beliefs. So many ways. And challenge assumptions. I hate to say it, you guys, but we live by these grandiose generalizations. Like, I can pretty much promise you that there is such a thing as a Christian, patriotic, I'm just going to say it. There's such a thing as a Christian, patriotic, liberal. Crazy, right? That's me too. That's me too. I also know there's such a thing as respecting and acknowledging another culture for the beauty in it without having to believe the same thing. I went to Morocco for almost a month. Miranda, challenge. Offering a belly dancing workshop is cultural appropriation. I would say to that, if you can teach the history behind belly dancing, that is cultural appreciation. Anybody want to challenge that? If you know the history and you understand what it represents and you share that when you teach it, it is not cultural appropriation. And you know what, Teresa? Thank you. Respectful, curious, anti-racist conservatives. I go to church with a lot of them. Nobody's just one thing. And certainly it's not defined by the color of one's skin. So just really quickly to Miranda's question, because I think that is a very, very common question. Thank you. That's also cultural appreciation. Having someone from the culture come in and teach a class. Feature them. But make sure you know the culture and the history. Right now, Afro dance is a big thing. I love Afro dance. Love it, you guys. Love it. But I can't teach it because I don't know the history or the cultural, like the cultural history of it. I just think it's brilliant and beautiful and fun. But if I were ever going to teach it, which I won't, I have a lot of responsibility to promote that culture over my business. That's cultural appreciation. You're right, Tim. I'm happy to talk about anything. And most people are very happy, even how to explain how to say their names. People will love when you pay attention to them and want to know more about them, as long as you're asking and not telling. All right, 2 more. Pay more attention, you guys, to how you make your decisions. When you look at a resume, if you are in a position to hire, what are you considering to decide if someone has value or not? Oh, Marielle, thank you. I've learned because I've had people tell me Keisha was too hard and they would call me Kim. Like, how rude is that? It's just super rude. You're right. It's a great conversation starter. Just make sure we're thoughtful about how we start the conversation, Teresa. Again, I grew up with a lot of Asian friends, and there's this thing that happens to Asian people that drives me and most of my friends nuts. Somebody says, "Where are you from?" My friend Sharon, my best friend, was born in Indiana. So she says Indiana, and they say, but where are you really from? What? No, 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 no. If you ask her her ethnicity, she will tell you her family is from the Philippines. So we have to be careful in the way we ask the question also. Because nowhere are you really from is like you're disqualifying the fact that she's American. And we do have to be careful. And then last but not least, just take the time to be intentional, especially when it impacts other people. When you are looking at performance reviews as a manager, watch your adjectives and how you describe people. Would you use the same description for someone able-bodied? Or would you use the same description for a man? Or would you use the same description for a white person with the exact same behavior set? If you would not, then you are marginalizing in how you talk about people, and that is their permanent work record. That's how they get paid. That's how they make their livelihood. Only the facts, ma'am. Oh my gosh, Tim, I know how old you are. Thank you, Tracy, so much. I'm reading Hillary's question really quick. Ooh, Leanne, you got me. Adorable, honey, cutie, cute. Yes. Watch your language. Let me read. Can you read Hillary's question for us, Marlene? I can read too, but I think a different voices do here.
Hold on. Hillary, hi Keisha. I've been reflecting on my question about tactical actions. Yes, I do think the way you frame the points on listening for understanding and choosing empathy and inclusive language are helpful. I am a D&I practitioner in a corporate setting, and my question comes from a place of thinking about actions to dismantle the systems and the tactics of that. Pay more attention to decision making and be intentional about big decisions. Start to go there for me.
Perfect. Perfect. And there's always more to come. This is about creating the right mindset. Ooh, watch your eye contact. Absolutely. To Hillary's point, and Hillary, thank you for bringing that back around. This is like, we've got to start with the idea, right? And the idea informs the language informs the actions become habits, and those habits become character. And if you're on the journey to be an anti-racist, to be a practitioner of inclusivity and belonging, then I just challenge you all, spend the time with the thoughts and plant the right thoughts and nurture the right thoughts. And don't be afraid to say you made a mistake. Because I make them all the time. All the time. So believe it or not, that's what I have for you. We're at 3:02. I thank you for hanging out with me so far. I do want to leave with you a thought that matters to me. I've read Maya Angelou since I could read, and I've watched every single thing I could ever see with her on, and she always said something along the lines, and she worded it different ways, different times, but I did what I knew how to do in the moment, and then when I learned better, I did better. Thank you for bringing where you are right now, and I know there's no way you can't do better, because we're all on this journey together. And thank you for joining me. And just remember, we are not responsible for our first thoughts. You guys, thank you so much. This was so good for me. It's a perfect way to close out a week. And any feedback you have, I'm sure Marlene's sending, pardon me, a survey.
Yes.
We owe you the first activity worksheet.
Yes.
And the instructional guide for it. Jerry, I look forward to meeting you too. Hit me up on LinkedIn so we can connect. And Marlene has curated all of your shared resources, and we will add that along with the resources I have curated for you.
Yes. It's a nice long list now.
All. Thank you so much. Marlene, I thank you, my sister.
Thank you.
You know what? I think we can make that happen. My LinkedIn info with the resources. Can we make that happen, Marlene?
100%. Yeah, I'll send a message to Liza right now.
Tracy, it's Keisha M. Dixon. Kisha, middle initial M, Dixon. That should do it. And you guys are on a journey. Thank you so much. You're going to be the difference. I thank you. All right, Ryan, thanks for being so cool in the background, dude.
Thanks, Ryan.
And we are out.
And scene.
Bye.